Siphinde sinivusele maswahla amahle sinibingelele ke ehlelweni Embili kanye ibito lami ngiJohn Makaphirez Sibongo ngathemba ukuthi niphilile benkosi lenhle kuphina kuphi lapho ke umsakazo wakithi unitfola khona sisakadela benkosi lenhle kulohlelo kakhulu kade kukhulumisa ukuthi singemaswati asibambane sibe munye siye ke Embili kanye solo nje imiye isayi kithi maswahla amahle siniketwa ke ngilomuthe welive ingwenyama inkosi umswati wesithathu uthi maswati singafika esigabeni semavela athuthukile phecelezi first world status insayi ke benkosi lenhle ukuthi mina nawe senda ini lapho sikhona kulekelela live lakithi ukuthi lifike ke esigabeni sawo ke mavela athuthukile. There's a lot happening in the country. If you look from an infrastructural perspective, the country is developing, the face of the country is changing, and if you take a long-term perspective of what this infrastructure means to our economic development as a country, it shows that we are making progress towards our goals towards our goals or the attainment of a first world status as a country. Naletinye ke tinto benkosi lenhle ngihlale ngisho kulohlelo lokuthi tibita lokuthi siconze lokuthi environment lesiyo ikuphi iphosa maphi ama challenges ipresenta maphi ama opportunities which is where then we are able to make informed decisions in terms of navigating those particular scenarios. Ikakhulu kade ke siphetha nje umnyaka sifuna kubuka lokuthi ingabe umnyaka wanga 2021 usiphatheleni in particular with regards to how the economy could look like. We just want to reflect on how 2020 was, the impact of COVID-19 on the economy in 2020 affected involved. Are we likely to see a sluggish economy in 2021? If that is the case, what are we expected to do as stakeholders, as industry players in different sectors to try and navigate this particular situation? Is it a pessimistic approach towards 2021? Is it a positive outlook? And what does it mean if the situation is pessimistic? In the year 2020, in February, I sat with two gentlemen in the studio whom I had requested to come and sit with me just to try and analyze the economic for the year 2020. These two gentlemen you see over there is Mr. Natigule, the one with his finger on the cheek, and the gentleman in the dark suit is Dr. George Chongwa. This was around February, prior to the presentation of the budget speech by the Minister of Finance, Neil Rickenback, and I had asked Dr. Chongwa as an economist to come and sit with us in the studio to give us a perspective of what we could expect the budget to look like, and of course Natigule, a social analyst and a global mentor, to try and see what trends we are likely to see coming out from the impact of the budget speech in 2020. They're here in the studio with me once again just to see and to validate their thoughts and just to share their views one more time to say what can we expect in 2021, especially considering the impact of COVID-19 on the economy. Dr. Chongwa, a very good evening and a warm welcome to Embili Kanye.
Thank you very much, John Perez, and thank you so much, the Broadcasting Nation, and I wish to greet the entire nation at large.
Of course, it had been a very difficult year, Dr. Chongwa. We've made some progress. We were resilient as a nation in many fronts, but we can never take away the fact that this year was a very difficult year. I don't know if you concur with me in that.
Yeah, very true, and this actually gives me an opportunity to even pass my sincere condolences to the entire nation at large for having lost our most dependable and highly reputable person who was very, very, patriotic in the issues of reviving the economy. So I wish to pass my sincere condolences to the state for the loss of His Excellency, Mr. Dlamini, but nevertheless, just commit everything in God's hands.
Of course, yeah.
God has always blessed this country, and with our efforts on the table, we'll again rise. It is very true, Mr. John, that starting from 2017, 2018, economy was not very promising. At least we grew at 2.4%. Then around 2009, the economy came down to about 1.3%. And 2019.
Yeah. Just before you give me the technicalities, Dr. Chongwa, I just wanted us to try and then share in the same sentiments of how the year was looking like. And I need to give Kwabane Kule an opportunity to also greet our viewers. Kwabane ngiyabonga kakhulu ukuthi uphinze ubuye la. Ngihle ngisho emaswatini lokuthi kuyangisitha lokuthola umuntu lokhona lokulandzelela ama social trends ukuthi abantu nyalo ba behavior kanjena ngalo ukuthi nathi into letendekako. And I think I do notice the fact that normally it is easy to just get carried away because of certain social trends, and no one is actually pointing it out to would say, do you even realize, society, that you are being carried away, and basically this is what is happening, and this is the space you are playing in. And I believe even today you are going to try and contribute your views in terms of kutse mangabe economic yethu itawukhona kuba vibrant in 2020 kusho kuthini, mangabe itaba sluggish kusho kuthini. How are we likely to see a behavior in our consumers? But an opportunity to greet our viewers on the program, Mr. Kule.
All right, thank you so much, Perez. I'm excited to be here once again. Of course, we were here in February last year, and it's so good to be here with you, Mr. Chonga, Dr. Chongwa. I think he was Mr. last
year. The status has changed.
Yeah, so a lot can happen in 12 months. So thank you also to the broadcaster for hosting us again, and I'm looking forward to an empowering and very fruitful discussion that will leave the viewers with a lot of information and help them navigate through 2021.
Yeah. So Shilo Dr. Chongwa lana, and I think vele siqala ngetindzaba letibhlungu kwabane letendeka lele live, and more so because of umkhuhlane we COVID-19. We just want to reflect, and how was the year 2020? Your view of the year 2020?
It had a lot of highs and lows, because depending on where and your perspective, some people will tell you that it was a great year because they were able to quickly look into other ways that they can immediately adjust. You saw the list of essential businesses coming out around April, and a lot of business people were now rushing into supermarkets, into the food industry to say, if my business is closed down, what next can I do? And some of them have gone on to discover that actually this is my calling, and they went on to become quite successful in that space. So it has not been a terrible year for everyone, but it has been a very challenging year for most of us, because change obviously comes with challenges, and trying to adapt to something new, which is now Mr. Perez and the rest of the nation, it's now starting to seem no longer like a new normal. It's starting to seem more of a normal, with technology also now driving this change. A lot of us have really had to hop onto the bus while it's on the road, to really try and understand technology and how it feeds into our businesses, how it feeds into education, how it feeds into our normal day-to-day life. So that in itself contributes to the challenges. But also, if you look at it from a different perspective, we've gained new skills. We've become better people than before this pandemic, because had we not had that extra push, would we have really stretched out and learned how to use all these technologies, host meetings online? And, I was on a meeting via Zoom, and there were people from Ghana, Nigeria. Would I have had that opportunity to be in a meeting with so many people? It's opened doors, and it's expanded our networks. And just in March, as I conclude, Perez, Eswatini is hosting the Junior Achievement as Africa contest, and again, you're getting an opportunity of hosting Africa, and it will also be beamed virtually to the rest of the world. And you're looking at the numbers again, Perez. Initially, what could only be seen by a small group of people is now being seen by the whole world, thanks to the unlocking of this thing caused by the pandemic. So there is opportunity within crisis, Perez.
Especially now that you mentioned issues of technology in 2020. It's interesting that services such as the delivering of sermons in churches churches also had to adapt, But I think we just want to look quickly and reflect back a bit, Dr. Chongwa. How was the economy when it started in 2020? When we spoke early in the year, for me, and I think I did mention this to you, that I don't like it when we carry a pessimistic outlook into a new year, because then that influences the behaviors of industries and consumers in the market, But how was the economy in a nutshell? And I think we just want to look at how we probably are going to project ourselves into the new year in 2021 based on the current economic situation.
Like I said before, the 2020 economic situation, it was really a situation which was engulfed with a degree of high uncertainty. Now, usually degrees of high uncertainties, they provide opportunities for growth. because innovation comes in, and now we are in the industrial revolution state. High level of uncertainties, they actually strengthen that kind of revolution. So like it has been said before by Mr. Gule, that 2020, on our analysis, we even called it a gap year. Now, a gap year, it's a period in an economy in which you begin to revolutionize your economy. You begin to understand and revise the key performance indicators which you are going to use as a launch pad into the following year. And also, if you look at on the global calendar, 2020 is a zero at the end, meaning is the calendar comes back to zero. So you are rewinding. So 2021, it is a step, it's a new step ahead. So this has been.
It sounds to me like we are creating a positive outlook, George. Here.
Yes. In fact, from the socio-economic development perspective, 2020 was an opportunity for developing countries to catch up with developed countries, because 2020 had reached a point of bringing down the entire globalization to a standstill. So the trend came to a standstill, giving an opportunity for individual economies to accelerate towards the global status. So it was really, to me, it was not only that negative aspect, but it was a lockdown for each country to introspect itself and begin to regenerate, to re-strategize, so that when the lockdown is over, you'll be able to have what we call the strategic partnership to forge ahead.
Yeah, in our discussion at the time, the economy was already sluggish and growth was sluggish at the same time. But this did the COVID-19 influence the behaviors of policies from a government perspective, from a private sector perspective, or your public sector, and consumers generally, because of the way the economy was. And with COVID-19 coming in, did consumers and stakeholders, like I've mentioned, change the way because of now the effect of COVID-19, further acceleration or deepening the sluggish growth and in the economy?
It's true. Actually, right now we have a projection of negative 6 GDP output because of deficities. And usually whenever there's a high level of deficit in an economy, disposable income becomes low. So once there's a reduced disposable income, people begin to make informed decisions about what to buy, when to buy, and how to buy. Now, that to some degree, it also helps out to balance the inflation rate. And we thank God that our monetary policy in the country is still stable. And because we're a pegged economy, so the more monetary policy is stable on the money part, because our inflation is within single digit, which is still good, it still gives enough room for households or individuals within the country to remain sustainable as they adapt to the changes in that particular economy.
Yeah. With an economy like this, Kwabane, and I know you also speak from a position of understanding and following what government is doing from a policy and governance level with regards to some of the issues of how the economy is performing. If you look at the way the economy performed, or the way the economy was affected by COVID-19 in particular, is it likely that we are going to see government try and put some controls just to make sure that they cover for the losses that we made probably? You know that there were capital projects that were supposed to take place, and a lot of expenditure and finances that were directed to other projects, you know. Are we likely to see some constraints coming from government when they formulate the new budget, which is likely also then to influence a lot of sectors and the consumers, like I mentioned earlier?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because this is articulated a bit in the post-COVID economic recovery strategy that was launched later in 2020. And already there you do see all these questions that you're asking, Perez. The government and the stakeholders, they make very strong efforts to answer the questions of where we will be in terms of their operations and how it's going to affect the men on the streets. And they also offer a lot of solutions in terms of saying how will they be working towards creating more employment, creating more opportunities, infrastructure growth, economic growth. It starts with the problem, the problem statement, and then it comes with the solutions. It's a very good document, free of charge. You go on the government website, you click, you download, and it will give you a bit more in-depth perspective of where the country will be heading. But obviously, yes, the budget speech we will carry a lot of direction. Just like the speech from the throne carries a lot of direction from the country. Actually, the speech from the throne carries the principal direction for the country, and then the budget speech sort of carries that economic details there as well. And it is up to every citizen of the country to really take it upon themselves to follow both very key moments in the country, so that they know where they plug in and how it will affect them. And being affected, Perez, it comes in two ways. You are affected negatively and positively. So you must view both key events with an open mind and see how you can really adapt and use whatever new information. Because I always say there is no law that was ever formulated or no regulation formulated to make the citizens unhappy or to make a business harder for people. Any policy that is formulated to make things better for everyone. Yeah. But if your comprehension of that policy is skewed, then it is likely that you will not be able to interpret it, and you will not be able to understand what good it has for you. So give it upon yourself to understand and educate. And just to close, Perez, there's a quote that says, what people understand the least, they criticize the most. So then it becomes a lot of noise to say, what's happening this year, and that pessimistic approach. Whereas when you really take the documents that I've spoken about and look at them in depth, even the coming budget speech, you'll find that there's a lot of pro, and there's just too few anti-things for us, because it is formulated for our good.
Of course. And I think what Gule is saying in a nutshell is that we carry the responsibility as the citizens of this country to find out and to be part and parcel of what our government is doing. For instance, the post-budget document that talks about the direction that the country is taking, especially after COVID-19. It helps you and I to find the opportunities and to see the effort that government is putting with regards to creating employment opportunities, and for you to also identify where these employment opportunities are. George, in 2020, GDP, you will explain what GDP means to for the average person to understand. GDP was projected to be at 1.3% in 2019, projected to become 2.8% in 2020. Did this happen?
No, it didn't happen, and actually, due to the disruptions that the country experienced due to COVID. Unfortunately, we could not achieve our projections. But when we were projecting this, when it was projected in 2009, all the necessary precautions were taken into consideration. And it was actually an exciting experience, because it would bring back the country to a more competitive platform. Nevertheless, like I stated before, we even expect a negative GDP output if the situation continues. In economics, we call it ceteris paribus. If nothing changes for the better, the economy might degenerate to about negative 6% of GDP. So unfortunately, we did not achieve the projection that we have had in 2019.
Yeah, and from a trade perspective, from an import and export perspective, the lockdown did affect our trade with our partners within the region, especially in the SACU region, which is where government derives most of its revenue. And I think the issue of revenue is critical for me, considering how government formulated its budget. Last year's budget, or 2020's budget, stood at 24 billion, and the expenditure was expected to be derived from a 21 billion revenue. Yes. Which comes also from the SACU receipts. With the lockdown having affected trade and trade import and export, are we likely to see government's revenue decline because of this?
The answer to that, it is yes or no, because government has put in place various measures like stimulating, the issues of local debt, whereby the government is trying to create what we call create fiat money, whereby the government will borrow through bonds and securities within the local enterprises to balance up. So that is one of the key measures that we are hoping it works, because lately the central bank floated out some securities, and we hope that the local investors will take advantage of that. Nevertheless, like we say, that 2020 is a launch pad for 2021. So 2021, and the fact that SACU came into place, remember SACU is connected to the European Union. And so once there was a lockdown, the bullwhip effect, we call it the bullwhip effect, whereby the supply chain, the global supply chain is basically neutralized. That really affects on the issues of our revenues, because SACU has been one of the major contributors to the GDP of the country. And so we expect that in the short run, the revenues, especially from SACU, are going to deteriorate. But the measures which are taken by government to secure the local, creating what we call the fiat money, that one, it is going to serve as a precautionary measure to cushion the shock.
Yeah. Nat, you already brought up the issue of the post-COVID-19 strategy and how government also intends to use that as a launch pad for employment opportunities. Where are the employment opportunities for Emaswati? And I think it is good that we bring that up, because when we say post-COVID-19 strategy, recovery strategy, Emaswati must be able to identify what this means, because I remember some of the projects that were highlighted in these things, Emaswati should be able to interpret how this is beneficial to them at the same time.
All right. We do see a lot of infrastructure projects there. Obviously, agriculture is also featuring there. And globally, just moving also away from that strategy, you also on an individual level, because that can only create a certain number of jobs. But then we only have about 60,000 entrepreneurs in Eswatini, hey? SMEs. And we have room for many more. And you hear the situation where they say a lot of graduates may not find jobs. From a person who's a mentor for business people, I can't say I get excited from it, but it presents an opportunity, Perez, for those graduates to use their knowledge that they have gotten from a university and translate it into new businesses, into consulting services, into many industries that there are many gaps that are already out there, and they are articulated in that strategy, and they were also very well outlined during the lockdown, when they told us these are the essential services. So you can't tell me that you've got an IT and information technology degree and I'm still waiting to find a job. You can't tell me that you have a tourism degree and you're saying you're still waiting to find a job. Convert that which you have in your hand, like Moses. If you've got the Red Sea, use your rod, strike it down, and the Red Sea will part. And it's the same with all those graduates. And anyone who's unemployed, basically, it is all about wherever you are, in whatever space you are in, look for the opportunity, and then apply, go from ideation stage and go all the way and apply and venture into entrepreneurship. There's a lot to be done. And you ask the question that where are the gaps? The gaps are with us. We are supposed to identify them, and we are then supposed to then bring in customers and convert that into a socio-economic development of Eswatini. Yeah. So it is not for us to wait for government to say, oh yes, here are jobs here. Here's a list of jobs. It is up to us to also look at global trends, look at regional trends, and then also look at national trends to see where the spaces are. If trends are in food security, I know a lot of young people who are producing this composite waste, and they're selling it to farmers. A young guy in Punya, he's just 24. He's producing that and selling it to different suppliers and farmers. And he's looking at the fact that everyone is into farming these days. And he has found an opportunity. He's found a gap. He did not wait for government to list it for him. But he said, hey, if everybody's farming, let me look for some farming inputs and distribute them.
Of course. And I think, George, I'd like to give you an opportunity also to dissect the post-COVID-19 strategy with regards to employment opportunities. And Nat has already mentioned some of those opportunities. When government says we've put together a strategy worth 40 billion injecting into the economy, how does that translate into into employment opportunities for Maswati?
Basically, the entire economy is based on knowledge economy. And every economy begins and ends with production, because production is the creation of utility. And once there's a creation of utility, there is demand. And demand stimulates supply. Then the exchange between demand and supply is called price, and that is called the value. So if the government pumps into the society, into the economy, an amount of money, the secret behind that, government must liberalize the economy so that people becomes innovative and creative to stimulate towards the creation of production. Quickly, let me take you back to how the word entrepreneurship started after the Second World War. The French economies, the government addressed to the people to say, we wish to tell you that from today onwards, as government, we are not going to put bread for you on the table. You have to sort out yourself. That's why the word entrepreneur came into place. Entrepreneur is simply a French word which means coming out of the debris. In other words, find your survival technique. So government, from that time, entrepreneurship has become the only way to reboost the economy. And I thank this government because they prioritize strengthening the SME sector. So it is up to the SMEs themselves, like it has been said by Mr. Gule, to understand how to create value. Because value is what stimulates the economy. So it begins and ends from there.
Yeah.
And not only that, I wish also to appeal that it's high time that government now begins to operate like an entrepreneur.
Itself.
Yes, government must operate like an entrepreneurial machinery so that it will be able to fast track the entrepreneurial culture in the government. Any government, believe you me, any government which is going to embrace the new theories in economics, we call it the Homo economicus theories. Now, the Homo economicus theory is simply nothing, don't be confused by the term, it's simply nothing but stimulating entrepreneurial culture in public sector.
Yeah. Can you explain that a bit, especially saying if we are to make a turnaround as a country economically, government has to operate like an entrepreneur?
Yes, Homo economicus theory. I'm telling you back to Homo economicus theory. Now, this is a new trend. Why am I saying it's a new trend? Because human beings in any economy, they are rational beings. They determine their society. Things change. When there's COVID, human beings started behaving in a certain way. Okay? Now, that ability to change and adapt to external pressure, it is an ability that is only exercised by an entrepreneur. Now, if government begins to operate like an entrepreneur, government is going to be more cautious with resource mobilization. It is going to be more cautious with the level of production and value. So, which means government is going to be quality value based. So, which means each output which government is going to be releasing to the general public, it must have what we call monetary value. Unlike the old paradigms where government used to provide everything for free, that paradigm now it has changed. Starting from developed states up to developing states, it has changed. Even IMF and World Bank, they do no longer fund such kind of projects.
Yeah. I think later on I would like to find out, George, where these opportunities are for government to scale up production, because exactly. I think there are those areas where if government concentrated its effort, then we could realize a value in this kind of production. Exactly. if the economy is the way it is, Nat, and especially going into the new year 2021, coming back from how COVID-19 has affected us psychologically, I know a lot of people have made it. You know, there were opportunities for tenders, there were opportunities for the supply of different kinds of things, from your medicals to your PPE and the likes, you know. But I think generally this also influences the way people behave, you know, those that have money and those that don't have money, you know. If we are to get people to be part of the economy that is going to change because of the contributions that they are making, it must start with me. But I think we are being influenced by the trends in your social media, in your social spaces, what someone else is doing, you know. How do we maintain or make sure that we don't get carried away because of the way other people are behaving, you know? You may end up using money you are not supposed to use, trying to start a venture you're not called for, you don't know nothing about, and things like that, you know. But generally, consumer behaviors, I am saying, are the result of what we see in our society, and we need to get our people to think carefully before they commit to certain things, or even to take advantage of the opportunities that are there. They are all in the space in social media and the likes.
Yeah, definitely. Perez, there was a study that was done mid 2020, looking at the global spending and also just trying to profile the future consumer, to see how they will be behaving in 2021, and it is anticipated that 2021 will be post-COVID, and basically they are saying consumers being very cautious with their spending. And I think it's just even the three of us now, we're not spending the same way that we were spending as when we were sitting together when the year started last year. Right now, there's a lot of uncertainty in society, and with with that uncertainty, there is erratic consumer behavior. So you find that there are periods where consumers want to spend, there are periods where they do not want to spend, but during whichever period, it goes back to what Dr. Chunga was saying. It's all about value. Whenever they step out, the first thing that they are looking for a very good reason on why they should buy your product, and that just goes back to the SMEs, that goes back to the entrepreneurs, and the large scale businesses, to say, are you able to provide bigger value and convince this cautious consumer? Because now you've got cautious spenders out there because of COVID. Because now everybody is saying, I'd rather save and stockpile rather than to completely deplete my resources, because I do not know where the next lockdown will find me, you know. So now you are trying to fish them out of wherever they are, and you need to fish them out by screaming value, by screaming necessity of your products. And that is a homework that every SME moving into 2021 needs to make, to say, I know my product has always been there, but how do I now make it appeal and give it value, so that people and the consumers really want to support me? And then secondly, you asked about the issue of social media and extravagant lifestyles. It is what it is, Perez. Social media will never reflect the bad moments, and this is said many times over and over again, that a person will only capture their best moments. It's even when you watch a trailer of a movie, if they were to do a trailer of our discussion now, they'd only pick the juiciest moments, not the stuttering.
So people need to be careful.
So you need to be careful, because you need to get the bigger picture and really study, because right now we've created role models from people we do not even know. And we've never really studied their lifestyles to say, are they really who they say they are? And it is, and for us to remain sane and to make conscious decisions, we need to be quite cautious in whatever we feed ourselves in terms of social media, because it is not that extravagant lifestyle is 90% not genuine.
Of course,
so you need to be very cautious as a consumer, and not find yourself breaking the bank to try and meet a certain lifestyle that is actually fictitious.
Yeah.
Because we've got people wearing suits, yet they are rented suits.
Yeah.
I'm making an example.
Yeah.
Yet you will have to go and buy one for 3,000, and now you are now making a loss, yet that person you are following is smiling.
And this creates mental problems at the same time.
Yes.
The issue of adaptability and resilience not only for myself as an individual. If we look at the economy the way it is probably going to be in 2021, I think resilience for me is a result of preparedness.
Yes.
To say, what have you done to make sure that you adapt, you stay, you survive in this period, you know. And I think part of preparedness for me is what Nati just briefly mentioned, the issue of making sure you have savings, whether you are an individual, whether you are a company, or even at government level. Do we have enough reserves to sustain us should COVID-19 be a prolonged exercise or issue in our lives? What are we going to do? What are some of the things we probably need to do, George, from a preparedness perspective to make sure that we are resilient in 2021 economically?
Thank you. First of all, 2021 is going to be a gray area, because in 2021 we'll be measuring what we call the output and the outcome of COVID-19. Then after 2021, 2022, 2023, in the next 3 years, 3 years, we are going to have an impact. Now, these are the very two important things that individuals and governments must understand together with the private sector. In the gray area, the most important thing is to minimize resource usage, and at the same time to maximize mobilization of resources. Because in the gray area right now, World Health Organization, they are saying we might have a second wave of COVID, or we may not have a second wave. So our planning in terms of resource management, we should have strategic resource management planning skills, whether at government level, at private sector, and at household level. We should have, I repeat myself, strategic resource planning, resource planning and management skills.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think the issue of adaptability comes back, Nati, especially at household level. You know, George is saying 2021 is going to be a grey area, and we need to understand this as households, as consumers of different commodities. What does adaptability mean in 2021 for us as households and as consumers?
As households, as consumers, and also as business people, it's the number one skill that we need to take into this year. We cannot survive. Immediately they tell you that the borders are closed. You need to quickly think on your feet. You must not tell yourself that borders may open in the next 3 months or whatnot, because if you carry that kind of mentality, which is resistant to adapting, you risk depleting your resources of your company. You risk depleting the resources of your family if at a family level you are now anticipating that perhaps in the future things will change. So you need to quickly feed yourself with the right information and quickly adapt to the situation to say, now how do we move? Okay, now we're using technology. Now we need to stockpile. Now this is the new normal of how things are going to be. So that is going to be very essential. Quickly thinking on your feet, and that is how many people won 2020. They won 2020 by immediately moving with the tide.
Yeah, and especially with most people having been affected by the lockdown, this must have created what you call in your book the art of becoming financially stable, the credit trap. What is that? Are we going into 2021 with a lot of people in the credit trap, George?
It's most likely, especially as a result of the pre-COVID. And but we want to thank government under the monetary policy. It has relaxed the conditions, the terms of conditions of the monetary policy. The interest rates are now low, and so on and so forth. So basically, it will be another opportunity to come out of the credit trap.
Yeah, just define that briefly for us, George. What is a credit trap? Because you'd find a lot of people are going into 2021 in the credit trap.
It is simply living above your means. It is very advisable to live below your means, not even within your means now.
Yeah.
So if you live below your means, which means you're prudent, you're living a gap of adjustments. And that is what I call a gap of resilience.
Yeah. Yes. At household level, how do we live above our means? As a business, how do we live above our means?
On a household level, you live above your means if you do not understand the relevance of the difference between wants and needs. So always prioritize needs first, then come to wants later. That is basically what we can do at household level.
Of course. And I think really this is what you wanted to talk about, Nati. Into 2021, consumer behavior is going to be very important. Monitor how you conduct or you apply yourself with regards to your spending and your attitude towards how the economy is performing.
Yeah, no, very, very key. Applying yourself, I love the way he summed it up. I cannot add any more. Needs and wants. That is the consumer for 2021. It's a needs-based consumer. That's why I spoke about value. You need to ensure that you strike the consumer to know that they need this, so that they mustn't say, oh, I just want this and so on.
Of course,
so because they will not buy from you, and that will not impact the economy in any way. So it's going to be a very need-based scenario that we're moving into.
Yeah. Kwabane, thank you so much for coming through once again on the program. Dr. Chongwa, thank you so much for coming through, and I'm going to be reading the book, The Art of Becoming Financially Stable, and I do hope Maswati will make an effort just also to see what is in this book. It is essential that we empower ourselves with the financial skills necessary for success in 2021. Maswati Mate sibongile kuba nathi ke ehlelweni Embili kanye kanye Jehova kasigcina sibonane ngalokudala kusiphilile. Nisale kahle.